Can you recognize the predator, or are you easy prey? I think that this is one of the most important questions of 2020. Why? Because we're in the middle of a war on perception. And so we need to get very good at recognizing who is trying to empower us and speak truth to us versus who is trying to disempower us and turn us into easy prey. And so I believe that the most important thing that will allow us to do this is if we heal our instinct injury. And so what is instinct injury, and what does it have to do with any of this? So instinct injury is an umbrella term that I use to describe somebody who is in a disembodied state, meaning somebody who is disconnected from themselves, from their body, from nature, from their inner guidance, and therefore feel like they're walking around with a broken inner compass, lost, feeling helpless, and unable to trust self. And when we're in this state, this typically puts us in a place of fear. Why? Because deep down we know that we are vulnerable and that we are fragile. And so this regresses us to an infantilized state. And when we are children, when we're infants, and we don't know how to trust our inner guidance and protect ourselves, what we do is we externalize our power. We surrender it to external authority figures to protect us and keep us safe. And we become blindly obedient, compliant to that authority because our survival is attached to it. And through our loyalty, we also become defiant. We go into blind disobedience with anybody who challenges that authority figure. Okay, and so I think that it's really important to understand that state of instinct injury and how instead of relying on ourselves, we give our power away to the people outside of us to parent us because we feel like we can't parent ourselves. Okay, and so now that we understand the instinct injury, I believe it's important for us to start exploring the predator. Okay, and so if the instinct injured is easy prey, they are the blood donor. If the predator is out to make you weak and turn you into easy prey, they are the vampire. Okay, and so archetypally, there is this dynamic and this relationship between the blood donor who wants to find its survival through sacrificing self and its power, and the vampire who finds its survival through taking power and sacrificing the blood donor. Can you see how that is a codependent relationship? They are two infantilized children that don't know how to manage their own power, how to get their own needs met, and therefore, through their own pain and their painful relationship with power, with authority, with control, feel like they need to sacrifice self or sacrifice others. Okay? I think that by now you're starting to see the big picture. And most of us, the way that we were parented was through this painful dynamic. And so therefore, it's what is familiar to us, this codependency. And so when we go out into other relationships with a romantic partner, with government, with church, with academia, we tend to project this painful relationship that we had with authority onto all of these institutions, because since we didn't learn how to parent self, and since we have that broken inner compass and we're instinct injured, we project mom and dad onto these external authority figures to parent us. Now, here's the catch. Do you know that all these people that you're giving your power away to have the highest level of integrity? I don't know about you, but based on my understanding of not just navigating my own life, but especially 2020, I would say that we're in a crisis of integrity. I would say that it has become something rare. And, you know, do you feel safe giving your power away and allowing people with questionable integrity, with potentially criminal track records, with a history of betrayal and lying, or prostituting self for personal gain, whether it's prestige, money, a position? Do you feel comfortable sacrificing your power and giving it away to these people without knowing what their real agendas are? And isn't it a bit of a concern that you trust these strangers beyond your own inner guidance? Okay? And so, could it be that as we go through this presentation, there's a part of you that goes, oh, I can see how this applies to me, and another part of you may go like, well, that doesn't apply to me. And that's perfect, because what I'm doing is I'm just presenting impersonal information. This is archetypal information. And I'm talking to you through the extremes of black and white. Why? So that you can take that impersonal information, make it personal through finding the shades of gray, how this applies to you or how it doesn't apply to you. So let me ask you this. How scared do you feel right now about your health, about your finances, about your psycho-spiritual well-being, about your ability to connect with others, about hope for the future, about having fun and enjoyment in your life? How well is that going for you in 2020? And let me ask you this. Does the predator want you to be empowered and happy and vibrant and full of life? Well, my experience is no. Typically, what the predator wants to do is it wants to turn you into easy prey. How? By disconnecting you from your ability to provide for yourself and have financial independence. By disconnecting you from the people that you love so that you feel isolated. By disconnecting you from your ability to nurture your body so that you can be weak and sickly. By scaring you and keeping you in a state of panic so that you feel helpless and you compromise your health and your strength to find the power in you to move beyond this painful relationship. This is the work of the predator. And if you've ever been in an abusive relationship, whether it's with your parents, with a romantic partner, with a boss, with a friend, you will be able to recognize that in these people. The question is, why can't you recognize it in the narrative in 2020? And, you know, let's talk about something else. You know, like if you are the predator, do you want to hide things? Do you want to keep people from finding out the truth? Typically, yes. And what tactics would you use? And again, think about your own life when you've either been a child or navigated a situation in your earlier years where you kept a secret and you didn't want other people to find the truth. What would you do? Would you interfere with the ability a person had to expose you? Would you manipulate? Would you distort reality? I think you and I both know the answer to that. Again, why can't you recognize it out in the collective as 2020 unfolds? Like, honestly, if we were being guided by people that really respect us and treat us as sovereign adults, they would be giving us all of the information for us to sit with it, critically think, discern, and then decide how we're going to parent ourselves. That's not what's happening. They are keeping information from us and telling us that it's for our safety. In other words, they can parent us better than we can. I mean, can't you feel the insult to our intelligence and the level of disrespect? And if we've grown up in an abusive environment, again, this is familiar, so it doesn't come as a shock, and it just regresses us to that infantilized state. We become compliant, we don't question, we're in blind obedience, and we're in blind disobedience to the people that challenge that authority, and then we start shaming those people and calling them names like conspiracy theorist or quack or science denier or whatever other name the predator has given you to shame the people that are actually instinct healthy and are asking questions. Because that's what an instinct healthy person does. You see, I've spoken to you as a coach with all of these dynamics that I've learned through my practice, and even my own personal life. But now I'm going to speak to you as a journalist. That's my first career, mass communications. I've worked as a news writer. I've worked on camera for 10 years. And one of the things that we learn is that we need to look at all sides of the information, from the most conventional to the most conspiratorial, controversial. Why? Because truth typically lives somewhere within that spectrum. But the problem is that if you are in that state of instinct injury and your survival depends on you believing in the integrity of the institution, you will blind yourself to any other information because you're afraid to be ostracized or you're afraid for your own survival. Because what if that institution is lying to you? What if they're deceiving you? How deep is the betrayal? Can you handle it? And think about it. This is somebody that the instinct injured have projected mom and dad onto. I mean, them betraying you, or even considering that they would be just as heartbreaking and as scary as if mom and dad were betraying us. And so people would rather, I don't know, like go into denial than question mom and dad and consider the possibility that these surrogate parent figures may have engaged in the deepest level of betrayal of humanity. What if that's true? And let me offer something. Could it be that if you listen to all sides of the argument, and somebody may say, this is what's going to happen, this is what they're planning to do, etc., etc. Could it be that if you listen to that, you will have the tools to recognize the steps if this is actually a reality that's going to unfold? But you have that as part of your survival tools, okay? Versus dismissing that and not being able to recognize the steps as they are being laid. And then not having the ability to protect yourself. Let me just bring you back to stories about the wolf dressed as sheep. Because what has happened when we have not recognized the wolf dressed as sheep, and these archetypal childhood stories even warn us of that. For example, Little Red Riding Hood. She thought the wolf was Granny. And she got in bed with the wolf, thinking it was Granny. And the wolf was about to bite her. What saved her? she woke up to the reality. How about Hansel and Gretel? And the old lady that seduced them and told them what they wanted to hear. You can eat all this candy. I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to bring you into this beautiful, safe, delicious home. But why was that? She really wanted to protect them? Or is it because she wanted to eat them? She was getting ready to bite. And how about Snow White taking the apple from the old lady who was really a witch? I mean, since childhood, we've been warned about the predator and how seductive it is and how we fall under its spells because it typically tells us what we want to hear. And if you're in an infantilized state, it typically is either I am going to enable your dysfunctional behaviors and protect you and celebrate them, or I am going to keep you safe. And oops, if I need to punish you to keep you safe, it's your fault. And if somebody else does something, I'm going to punish you too, so that you make sure to keep everybody else in line. Don't you remember all of those tactics growing up? All of these tactics for manipulation that got us all into fear and compliance. Can't you see how they're being used on humanity right now? And so the question is, where is the harm in considering exploring different perspectives from people who may be instinct healthy and curious, and not in blind obedience or blind disobedience, but in a process to explore all sides of the argument and potentially get to the bottom of what's really going on? Like, why are they a threat, really? And also, what would happen if you actually listen to this presentation with an open heart and an open mind, and you were able to self-assess and ask yourself, how instinct injured am I? You see, the question here is not, are you instinct injured or not? I would say it's a given. We all have our layers of instinct injury. So the question is, can you recognize your instinct injury? Can you recognize the areas of your life that you feel you're helpless in and that you give your power away to? And I'll tell you which is one of the most common ones people feel very helpless about: their bodies. People are terrified of their bodies. They're terrified of their own health because they are disconnected from their bodies, because they're disconnected from nature, because they're disconnected from their body's innate intelligence and its language of symptoms. And so they can't trust their bodies. They can't trust themselves. And since they came into this planet, they've been taught to give the power of the management of their bodies away to somebody else to keep them safe. How do I know? Been there, done that. How did I get out of there? By questioning. And through that process of questioning, which is what got me into the career of health, that took me deep down the rabbit hole. And I started to realize that most of the things that we are told have nothing to do with our health, but rather with the predator's bottom line. And we have been deceived and betrayed at so many levels. And I think that the time is now for us to wake ourselves up and first start recognizing all the physical poisons that are interfering with our health and with our body's ability to stay healthy and vital. And in doing that, we will start waking up and having the ability to start realizing all the mental, emotional, spiritual poisons that these people have also weakened us with, so that we can start no longer turning against each other. Remember, what is the game of the predator? Divide and conquer. Your family, your friends, the people who have a different political perspective, they are not the enemy. We have all been programmed to over-identify with certain aspects of our life and create identity through that, and then see the people that don't resonate with us and that identity as the enemy. Part of this war on perception is our identity has been weaponized, and we're now being turned against each other, so we fight the dirty war for the predator. So what would happen if humanity would suddenly wake up and realize the war is not against each other, and realize that the predator is not your friend, your family, etc., but the people that are trying to control and take power over you. And what I want you to do, if you're open to considering the possibility that there are people behind the scenes guiding this level of mass betrayal on humanity, I would invite you to go to Time Magazine, to Forbes, and to the Global Economic Forum, all conventional institutions, and look up the Great Reset. And then what I'd invite you to do is to look at Corona situation. You know, you can't use those words these days. This Corona situation. And look at the coincidence that it's happened just now when they've been announcing this reset. And then I want to encourage you to go and look at the UN's goals for sustainable development and the UN's Agenda 21, and go as far back as 1992 to a convention in Rio where 179 nations agreed to this magical future that they have planned for you and that they have announced they are going to roll out shortly. But you know what? I am not going to spoil the joy and the fun of what the predator has been up to while we were all instinct injured, trusting it and trusting its integrity. All right, so I think that that's enough for now. And thank you so much for letting me have this conversation with you. I know it can be challenging to question things, but I think that we have no more time to waste. We cannot afford to continue in this state of instinct injury. And so I am going to ask of you, please listen to this presentation again if you must, and then really ask yourself what areas of your life you're instinct injured in, and start taking the steps to become a skeptic and to start really assessing all the information that is brought to you so that you can exercise your birthright to think critically, discern, and parent yourself and make the decisions that will protect you. Nobody can save you from you. We are our own superheroes, and it is our responsibility to keep ourselves safe, not to keep anybody else safe. And it's nobody else's responsibility to keep us safe. That is us. Responsibility, the ability to respond for self. That's up to us. What would happen if all of humanity suddenly woke up to themselves, grew themselves up, took their power back, and recognized the predator? A big kiss, and may we all take our power